Once upon a time, in a small village in the valley called Boit, lived peoples that lived happily, shared what they could grow amongst each other, and on occasions would help others. But a virus arrived in the village of Boit, and on the eve of Hallowed, things began to change.
G'day, Steve. How the fuck are you going, mate?
Voices could be heard in the forest. Here you go, mate. All right. The special effects for tonight's vision come from Link Knight Productions. Specialized effects. Jojo was a small goblin who lived on the edge of the forest near the village of Boit. Never wisely would venture into, because there are things that go bump in the night, and Jojo particularly doesn't like them. So he stayed on his little village outer, just on the ridge, overlooking the Bay of Cars, happily living like a goblin, smiling and eating raw rabbit on occasions just for sustenance. He's that kind of guy, versatile. And here is the good witch Danny G. That's right, the good witch.
Keep drinking, Kiwi. It's a health tonic.
Jojo had 3 legs and 4 arms. He felt a little unbalanced on occasions.
Hello, Death. Welcome.
Who's there? Who's there?
Susan,
What did you say your name was?
the detective.
My name's Fakal. Fakal? I don't know you. No, you know Fakal. You really do. Must be a French guy. Fakal.
I don't keep anyone in line, Kiwi. I can't even keep the dogs in line.
I wonder whether Jojo will use one of his 3 arms to put the patch on. Be interesting. Maybe as a phantom 4th arm lost in an accident stealing a Buick in the 50s. I'm not sure. It's a rumour, but again, I don't do supposition. It's either the truth or nothing. Put the patch on, Jojo. Hallowed Eve approaches. In times gone by, a serious note, celebration of the harvest would take place at this time of year. But then they'd build a straw man. Do you know that story of the straw man at the end of harvest? Who shall we place in the straw man to celebrate Hallowed Eve this year? Do we have nominations? Or is it a foregone conclusion? The only problem with having 3 legs is 2 jock straps. Let's be honest. The price of underwear would kill him. I think Jojo would definitely have to go commando, or at least lieutenant. No, I didn't see that. I didn't get an email off you, Danny. Maybe you gave it to
I haven't checked
Mystic
mine.
Angel, but I just thought that was so funny the other night. Boogers happen. I can just see bumper stickers, you know what I mean, t-shirts. Probably at the next rock festival in the United States, someone's going to yell out to Danny G, "Where do you get that damn fine ass t-shirt, lady?" She say, "I sell them."
See you, Jojo.
You can hear Jojo leave with his 4 legs and 3 arms. No, he's not running fast, it's just the repetition of the feet over a short distance. Goodbye, Jojo. Remember, stick to the road, don't enter the moor. Boogers happen. Yep, I can see a multi-million-dollar campaign coming up. The CEO of Boogers Happen, Danny G, going live from her island resort she bought from the profits. She just looks up, lifts up the t-shirt and says, "Boogers happen." And they thought Bart Simpson had a good catchphrase. Dope. Jojo needs to go to sleep. Go to sleep. Home improvements going well, I hope. Yes, yes. More bricks were laid today. By the end of the week, and I'm just putting together little bits each day that happen, and so it'd be boring to watch a video every day. So each week, this will be coming up Friday. It's Wednesday here today. And it's Wednesday there now. It's exciting. We're in the same day at the moment, but it will soon pass. We'll be into Thursday shortly.
Into Thursday.
Into Thursday. But come Friday my time, you'll have week 6 video. And things will definitely make sense to a lot of people who don't understand how we build homes in Australia. That's for sure. I did work out the other day because someone was talking about the value of a certain 30-year-old van. And I thought, I've got a window more expensive than that. And that particular person seems to think they've reached the height of success. Okay.
What?
Chased a possum. Yeah, I remember we had possums in an old house I lived in the 70s. They were a pain in the ass, 3 o'clock in the morning, screaming and screeching and going between the walls and bloody things. And then if you're unlucky enough that one of the possums dies between the cavities of the wall, yeah, it gets a little bit awkward. You end up pulling down most of the wall to find the damn thing. And dead possum is not nice. So what are all you doing for Hallowed Eve? Of course, that's the bygone terminology of Halloween, but it used to be Hallowed Eve and had different connotations.
Oh, Hallowed Eve.
There was no real candy being handed out in centuries gone past. It wasn't a knock at the gentle door and a young child saying, "Can I trick or treat?" No, they just struck him straight into the cauldron and boiled the little buckers. Hallowed Eve. What are you doing on the 31st of October? Special Effects Vision tonight is
That's a
brought
cat.
to you by
Oh, it's a
Link
dog.
Night Productions. What?
I thought it was a cat. It's a dog.
Nah, it's a dog. He's taking his owner for a walk. Drinking, same as usual. There's nothing wrong with drinking. In fact, Kiwi, if you and I lived 300-400 years ago, we'd wake up to breakfast, probably some cheese and bread, but with beer. I'm not kidding. And we'd go and work in the fields. And then at lunchtime, we'd Probably come back, have some cheese, bread and beer. Actually ale, it was ale. And then after you finished work, you'd have a big meal of whatever could be caught on the day, chopped up, cooked, with some bread and some cheese and some real beer, strong beer. Because they don't want you drunk working in the field, so they just give you ale. And why did people drink a lot of ale? Well, through the process of fermentation, it becomes sterilised. So Steve, you're looking after your health by having a sterilised beverage. That's all you need to know. I can see it now. Kiwi Steve's health clinics all over the world. All they do is get bread, cheese, big vat of beer. And if anyone questions you, you say, history proves me right. Drinking water can kill you. You can drown in the stuff, let's be honest. Good morning, VMAC. Nice warm day again here today, about 30, beautiful. I think New Zealand is going to melt down. It's just as well that New Zealanders are willing to drink anything. There's always the cupboard under the sink with those ingredients down there. It's not probably a pleasant cocktail, Kiwi, but it'll get you by for those 2 days. You will be frothing at the mouth come Monday morning, though. Terps and dishwasher liquor again there, Kiwi, was it? Yeah, mate.
We've got a local liquor store. You know the one down...
Down at the local shops?
No, the one down the other road. Heading to the station.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just constantly getting broken into.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's probably Kiwi.
Kiwi, don't let him blame you for that.
"8 degrees but sunny. The skies and sea are blue."
8 degrees.
They're probably blue because it's starting to freeze. 8 degrees? Yeah, you were in the high 20s just a couple of days ago. So it's coming. At least near the ocean it will be warmer than being inland, that's for sure, VMAC. We know that to be true.
Jeez, it feels like just... I know it wasn't last week. You were saying how you had snow. Just...
No, that
going
was
so
yesterday.
quick.
Yesterday, I think, a little bit of sleet. Not sure if VMAC got it because she's on the coast. Hello, Buttercup. What have you brought to Hallowed Eve? Ah, you have brought a lamb. Excellent. Take it to the altar. I shall get the potatoes and onions. VMAC? Just stick with the onions and potatoes. Ignore the lamb.
I would tell them about our dinner tonight.
Actually, we had a strange dinner tonight that was done deliberately. I bought some nice braising steak, big chunk of it, put it in the pot, seared it on both sides, put a little bit of chicken stock in there, just roughly cut up potatoes.
But tell them you were going to add onion,
But we don't do onions for the dog. So we had potatoes and beef for the dogs. We made up a couple of days' meals there, at least, in there.
Yeah.
And we had a meal. So we actually ate dog food tonight.
Yes,
Let's put it bluntly.
We ate dog
We did
food.
add some green peas at the end, but yeah, it was nice. Basically like a stew, meat falling apart. The dogs had a little bowl tonight and were in a frenzy. You shall bring me, myself, and I. You don't have a ticket for 3 people. We'll make an exception this one time.
People used to strain terps through bread to get...
There's a pussycat going for a walk over there. Ginger one. Hallowed Eve, when I was a child, would be the community coming together in a field. But prior to that, for the previous 2 weeks, to Hallowed Eve, everyone would bring pallets, wood, old trees, stumps, massive bonfire, basically. Older ladies would organise the pea and ham soup, and there'd be other people organising potatoes wrapped in foil. Some fireworks, not many, but some. But a festival of sorts. Seriously, that's what Halloween used to mean. Bonfires, community gatherings, food, obviously copious amounts of Kiwis' beverages. But great night. It was always a great night.
Yeah, I agree, B-Mac. I like Halloween, but I like Christmas as well. I love all the decorations and preparing the food.
I don't know if people do bonfires in, we're not allowed to do them here now. You know, mainly because our country's burning. We've had terrible bushfires already in New South Wales on the other side of my country. 30 homes were lost yesterday. Pretty normal for my country. We burn all the time. This is just the end of winter. Well, Halloween buttercup for me, you're in the UK, you'd remember the bonfires. The roast potatoes, the pan ham soups, a few ciders going around, everyone having a good time, kids all running amok. Yeah, that's all we do. We're making up little. The wife had a good idea. She bought some of these cups. Are they Halloween decorations on the cup?
They're Halloween themed paper cups.
Yeah, so we're going to fill them with lollies and
Because usually
candy and give a cup to each kid that comes. Easier to carry then.
Well, they've got bags anyway, but I usually do bags, but they had no bags, so I'm going to fill cups.
Yeah, Guy Fawkes night. I'm trying to remember. Is that November 5th, I think, Kiwi? I'm only guessing. Not really celebrated as much as Halloween.
We used to always have bonfires, but yeah, could gather all the stuff on the property as I was growing up, and twice a year we'd have a massive bonfire.
No adults go door to door here.
They
The
go with
adults
the
will
kids.
come to the edge of the road, let the kids come into the house or onto the patio, but adults don't ask for trick or treat here at all.
Buffering.
I'm buffering, I apologise.
If I go Halloween, it'll be wine. I'll ask for wine.
Yeah, adults who would just go around with an empty wine glass.
Yep.
Give us a wine or I'll kick your damn dog. Yeah, I thought it was number 5th. Yeah. Celebrating a failed terrorist attack. Only just failed, of course, if you know the history, Kiwi, I'm sure you do. Only just failed. Wasn't much time between it going off. And how many people would like to actually put barrels of gunpowder under the Houses of Parliament in England right now? I think Buttercup would be rolling one up the lane. One way to leave Brexit, blow up the English Parliament.
No, it's not worth going to jail over.
No. It's going to be a rather savage end to this confusion with Brexit. I'm pretty sure England will just say, we'll stuff you. That's what's going to happen. I don't think they want to bend to the powers of Angela Merkel. That's just my opinion. I'm an Australian, so what would I know? Yeah, bonfires on Guy Fawkes night were okay, but not as big as Halloween. Everyone used to dress up. Kids used to get lollies. In the old days when I was a kid, they were all boiled lollies, if you remember, just the boiled lollies, all different flavours.
When's the start of winter here? What month? First of
So it's May, June, 1st of June.
That's when Dad used to do a bonfire.
Yeah, I used to do the same.
1st of June, yeah. I was just sitting there thinking, what was the 1st of June significant for? And I realised it was because it was the start of winter.
And you could burn.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, mulled wine's okay. I actually like it cold though. You know, mulled wine is generally served warm, hot. I don't like it.
Oh, where were we?
It's a bit too spicy
When
when
we
it's
were
hot.
in New Zealand, we tried that.
That was mulled wine.
Oh, was that mulled one? Was it? Where it was a bit red spiced wine or something.
I don't mind it cold, but not heated up. Yeah. I've actually run across coals of a fire, generally because it was about 4 in the morning. I'm still drunk, and I just was walking to go and do a piss. But, man, you soon pick up speed. Yeah, it wasn't a cultural event. I'll give you the tip there, Kiwi. And you know, burns to your feet take quite a while to heal. Yes, tempted to throw a few bods on the bonfire. There's lots of things that just don't occur now. Particularly, most of you are old enough to probably understand that there used to be community in your local areas. There'd be events, and, it might only be 30 or 40 people, but they've all gone.
Well, actually, they're starting to do it here again. It's happening the last 5 years. They have once, twice a year a street party.
Yeah, we have a good street party. It's sort of, because as a boy in the UK, my grandfather told me that they would have about 140 days of festival. That's in the late 1800s, but that literally was normal. Be a festival for this, a festival for that, all year round. And you didn't work on those festival days. That was the day off, so they only worked about half the year.
Actually, I don't really like mulled wine.
I prefer a nice port. I've got a nice port. I've had the bottle for over a year now. I've only had a little drink out of it. It's called Galway Pipe. It is a really nice port.
It's the 55. We should do a thing on that for Halloween. The 55.
I think you're probably right, Buttercup, but we've always done Halloween for kids in the local area.
What's Robbie Burns?
Robbie Burns. Yeah. You don't know who Robbie Burns was?
No.
Tell her the Scottish history of Robbie Burns, VMAC. Just minimise the story. You don't have to throw a Braveheart in there if you like it. It doesn't really matter.
Maybe I should Google it.
Robert Burns. Or Robbie Burns, of course. Come on, give everyone a brief history of Robbie Burns. It's an interesting history, it really is. And I'm not going to steal your thunder. Yeah, but that was pretty much it, Kiwi. You know, the kids would bugger off doing their own thing. And someone would steal a few beers, of course. But then the adults got on to what they were doing. The women used to cook all the food. Yeah. Yep,
Okay.
that's probably this way.
I shall do that, VMAC.
So does Canada claim partial ownership of Robbie Burns, VMAC, or is that simply ancestry? Not many people read these days. I'm just thinking about what you wrote. Go read his poetry, unless it's online.
Well,
You're not going to be able to pick up a book and say, here's a bit of Robbie Burns. I'll read a bit of his
everything
poetry.
else is online, so I'm
No,
sure
it'll be
I'll
there.
find him.
It will be there. Yeah, but it was, I suppose, Christmas is a time of people coming together, and the kids get presents. We don't get a lot for our kids now, obviously, because they're adults. We get them something, don't get me wrong, but we give the kids, grandkids more. You never let Robbie live a few years ago. I understood that, Buttercup. I keep trying to keep some Scottish threads alive. My kids are not too interested. Actually, I went into Geordie there. Oops. Robbie Burns, very good poet.
Another 55.
Yes, you could. You could if people went to a bookstore, VMAC. You know what I mean? If people went to a bookstore.
Hey, we have some good bookstores.
We do actually. We have is it Dymocks that is the big one in Australia?
We've got Dymocks and Angus and Robinson.
Yeah, they're the big ones. Or some of the post offices actually have a lot of books, don't they? They usually have only Australian
Yeah.
publishing now.
And we have Book Exchange.
Yes, nothing wrong with Haggis. In Nips. We had all that when we were in Scotland, actually. It was yum.
What was that? I don't really like haggis either.
Yeah, and Robert the Bruce in the movie Braveheart wasn't really well represented, to be honest. Just near the end. A bloody history between Scotland and England, that'd be sure.
Yeah, I can spend hours in a bookstore, same as in a library. I could just grab a book and sit there for hours.
You often wait in a line when I go there. Then you realise after 2 hours that's actually just a double yellow line saying you can't park there. VMAC then puts on her glasses and says, oh, there's the door to the book
I ran
store.
a library for 7 years.
Yes, Mr. Gaines has been a librarian.
I even still got me badge.
Yeah, it says librarian.
Yeah.
That's just in case you couldn't figure out who was running a library, because she had a tag on it that said librarian. When I was a young bloke, even though I'm not that bad at spelling, I would always forget the second R.
Yes.
Put your hand up if you, in librarian, did you forget on occasions to put the second R in the word? I did.
Well, I think I'm dyslexic, even just spelling library.
Well, it's library.
In February, I have trouble spelling. In fact, I have trouble spelling everything, so it doesn't matter.
Anything over 4 letters, Mystic has a little bit of difficulty.
But I can pick up spelling mistakes. I proofread your stuff.
Yes, that's right. Kiwi.
Yeah.
If first you don't succeed, try, and then try again. There's a lot of ancestry of Vikings in Scotland. Very, very versatile people. They could handle the cold. A bit like VMAC. VMAC's obviously V for Viking. And MacDonald. Just kidding.
Yeah, finding out family history is interesting.
Oh, look, there's always skeletons in your family line. You have to think about, there's obviously some I've got one very famous relative that opened up Canada, parts of North America. But there's plenty of vagabonds in between that were shipped off to either slavery or colonised in different countries. It's a bit of a badge of honour in Australia. If you've got a colonial prisoner in your family line, it's sort of
convict.
Sense of pride. Yeah, convict, sense of pride. Because a lot of the convicts opened up Australia. Some went on to be high officials. One even was a governor.
It's what's sad though is when your family, like talking about your parents, grandparents, don't like to disclose skeletons in the closet, and you don't find things out till maybe a year or two before they pass, which is what happened with me finding out I've got full blood gypsy in me.
I was listening to someone on a podcast about a year ago, and he was a genealogist, and he said it's always surprising to him that most people struggle to know their great-grandparents, let anyone before that. So most people can go back to their great-grandmother or great-grandfather. They've got the family, what they call word of mouth. As he explained, word of mouth. People would say, oh yeah, your great-grandmother used to do this, and your great-grandfather used to do that. But he said most people have no idea beyond great-grandparents at all in genealogy. And I'm sure it's diverse, it's probably messy, There's probably good stuff, there's probably bad stuff, but that's life. That's what people say. I remember reading actually about a activist in, pretty sure it was either Scandinavia or Switzerland, where this guy came, very right wing, you know, wanted to be a Puritan as far as it comes to the important white race, if you like. Someone did a genealogy check on him, and he happened to have a great-great-grandfather who came from Africa, which I thought was hilarious. Of course, he denied it, said it was all rumours and false, and no, it wasn't. It was quite true. Not quite the blonde, blue-eyed person he thought he was. VMAC has to go to the cellar.
Yes.
Colonisation. I just wonder, Kiwi, when we come to other planets, would we do the same thing as the colonists did in Australia and America and everywhere else they've gone? The answer is yep, they'll do the same damn thing. The truth is, no one owns the planet. It's here to be shared. Now, at the moment, all we seem to do with it is tear it up and spit it out, make it a mess. I was watching a bulletin tonight about Mont Blanc, which is a mountain in France, well, in France, Switzerland and Italy actually, and it's melting. Most of the roads are closed because there are massive breaks off the glacier, and they believe it'll be gone completely by the end of, they're saying this century, but people are saying a lot earlier. Yep, that's true, Buttercup. You would remember stories told of your grandparents, I'm sure, or great-grandparents. A lot of my father's side are from York and in that area, and they go way back. My mother's side is not that far away, in Manchester and Lancaster. And families never used to move, Buttercup. Do you know what I mean? You'd have families that were there for 1,000 years minimum,
basically,
if not more.
Their whole life.
Yeah, some people never left the village.
Our parents and grandparents, well, except for ones who migrated, but once they migrated, they basically, where they landed, they stayed.
Yep, it was the same feeling like, well, we're here now, this is what we do, we'll just be in this area.
Oh yeah, take the humans out, the planet will thrive. Take the animals out, we'll die.
Well, I know David Attenborough did a series with specialised scientists, and he basically said within 50 years the planet would rejuvenate without doubt, without humans.
Yeah.
He said in 5,000 years there'd be no sign visible of humanity. In other words, it would all crumble. It would all fall down. There'd be odd bits and pieces, I'm sure, but I get what they're saying. There was nothing before we came along.
Hey, I don't dust in a week and I get spiders.
Yeah, just imagine 500 years. It's the only species, if removed from the planet Earth. Hello, Pusscat. Went straight under the car.
Oh, did it? The orange one?
Yeah.
Puss.
He's getting a bit game. Maybe he's just chewing on some spare biscuits.
Well, I don't know. I think either try and befriend him or to do something, because if he starts taking my birds, he's not going to like it.
Well, the catch is you start feeding where we feed the birds, he'll be here when the birds are here, so...
Well, maybe we can help him somehow.
We'll send him to Steve. We'll call it a stubby holder. That's a bit furry, this stubby holder Sid sent me. Wow! It even makes a noise when I drink. And in that report that David Attenborough did with these scientists, he said the things that would die off are animals that we domesticated. And he's talking dogs, cats, cows, sheep, anything you can imagine that we've domesticated. Mother Nature would end up removing them.
Oh, what is it? Sort of natural...
Well, they just wouldn't survive.
Well, yeah, wouldn't they become feral?
Well, no. What would happen is they'd get eaten. Most domestic animals don't have the ability. I mean, most domestic cats are scroungers, but you got to believe that some species of the dog would go on to be wolf-like again, and they wouldn't survive. Yeah, I know that it's one of those things, Buttercup. My mother's family, there was 13 brothers and sisters in the family, and they didn't live more than a mile away from each other at all. If you know Manchester at all, in the old days they had a lot of the two up, two down houses along Princess Road. That's where most of them lived, across from the old soccer fields, which I imagine are all gone now. But yeah, so they never went very far. I know I read a report, most Australians, and there's 25 million of us, at any given time, 1.5 million Australians are overseas somewhere. So quite a high percentage are on holiday somewhere. They did one of UK. It's something like 0.04%, and most of them go to Spain, Portugal, Mallorca. They don't travel much further. They don't want to travel more than a couple of hours. But that's, again, inherent in British life, I believe. I remember the Irishman telling me that, no, I never left Ireland. I said, why don't you leave Ireland? He said, if I'm gone for a little while, someone will steal it. Yeah, it's funny, but a lot of people just don't want to leave. They don't want to leave their comfort zone, I think is what it is, Buttercup. Well, the rich, depending what we're calling wealth, if they've got land, they probably do okay. But the biggest loss that people don't have is knowledge. If anyone said, give me a survivor video seeds, I'd say, okay, it's all about knowledge. Because knowledge is supremely powerful. Do you know how to make salt, butter? How do you make cream? How do you raise animals? The how-tos that people don't know.
But print it out, because if the internet goes down,
I did that
useless.
someone years ago, remember? I did about 20 sheets of the basics. And one of the most important things are shelter. The first thing is water. If you have to live under a tree but you can drink, you're going to be okay. Uncomfortable, cold, windy, yep. But water, shelter, and food. And I looked into it years ago. Each one of you right now have access to 8,000 lines of food. Where do they come from? Well, mainly the supermarket. 8,000. Now, there is not 8,000 product grown in anyone's area. I remember clearly we grew all our vegetables when we were kids. All of them. It was all year. Bar the middle of winter we'd grow in the UK. And rabbit was a common meat. And that was caught in the fields. Pheasants. I never saw a chicken till I came to Australia. I never had a meal of chicken. It was like, ooh, too expensive. But it depends where you live. But knowledge is by far the biggest tool you'll ever need. Could you build a shelter? Yep, I can. Do I want to? Not really. But if I had to, I could do it. At my age, probably a bit slower than I did before. Well, Kiwi, if you like, when I was a kid, you weren't allowed to leave the table until you finished it. Brains, liver, kidneys, tripe, yeah. Do I eat it now? No.
No.
But when you're hungry, like I say, most of the foods I had were broths. Bones you could get, plenty of marrow and bones, and you got onions, cabbage. There was no garlic when I was a kid. Potatoes, swede, turnip or rutabaga, whichever country you come from. But the knowledge to grow, the knowledge to harvest, the knowledge to store, hardly anyone has that knowledge now. Hello, Darren. And it's sad in one way because, like I say, there are at any given place on the planet, if you live near a big town or a city, you have 8,000 items of food to choose from. But if they all disappeared, trust me, you only have what's available in your local area. Like maybe you've got fish, maybe you've got deer, maybe you've got lamb. In times of trouble, believe me, no one owns anything. It is the fittest that survive. Read a book about a little village, and I think it was in the Midlands in the UK, where they had about 20 types of food. That wasn't including vegetables. What I'm talking about is different types of bird eggs. You can eat any egg. Different types of hare, rabbit, fish, like pike, bream, things like that. So they had about 20 different types of food to live on other than vegetables. So they grew whatever vegetables they wanted to. Salt was a premium. You could get salt, but it would cost you. Didn't have pepper in the old days. That came a lot later. But they got by. And the one thing that you know, that if you've got milk and you've got potatoes, there's actually all the minerals that your body requires just in those two things. Sweetbreads, I used to eat them when I was in the slaughterhouse when I was a young fella. They're right. Bit of an acquired taste, but it's okay. Yeah, no, we'd always have, I've always done that. Like if I have a chicken, have the kids round, if there's any leftover potato, carrot, whatever I've cooked, the carcass of the chicken all goes into a pot, buttercup. And we have enough chicken soup for 3 or 4 meals. And what people normally do these days is just throw them out. Why would you? But people don't mend and make do anymore. They throw and replace. Oh yeah, leftovers. They're just another, I always call leftovers preparation for another meal. But some of the simple things in life, like having a roast potato, you know, done on an open fire near the edge, crusty on the outside, soft and yum in the middle, bit of butter, bit of salt. That's a big potato. That's a big meal in itself. That'll fill you up. But milk during hard times, so it doesn't matter what milk. People say, well, what if there's no cows? There's plenty of other animals you can milk, like goats, sheep, horses, plenty of animals that will give you milk. There's so much vitamins, minerals within the process of a milk. Different times of the year, colder part of the year, it's probably just at its peak as you're heading into winter, because that's all the summer and spring goodness. But there's a big moment in Australia, just like there is in New Zealand right now, Kiwi. It's time of the year for the lamb, and there's plenty of it, so the price goes down a bit, which is always good. I love lamb. It's got a unique taste. It's not horrible at all. It's absolutely delicious. If you've ever thrown half a dozen chops on the barbie and you've had a few beers and you've had a feed already, Kiwi, what's it like going back to the barbecue after those chops have been on there for about 3 hours? It's heaven sent. Crunchy, nice bit of fat, tail of the chop, bubble and squeak. I love bubble and squeak. I make mine in little, like, patés, basically. You can make a whole pound of bubble and squeak if you like, but I like, you know, crispy pate. Probably it's the old version of a hash brown in it, buttercup, but with all different vegetables, whatever was around at the time. Yeah, I mean, mainly if the kids don't, or grandkids come around, a chicken would do is, we get 4 big meals out of the chicken, like, chicken and veg, and then we'd have chicken soup. And I always cook more veg than I eat when I cook in a chicken, because I know that what we call leftovers are going to become another meal. I do loads of pickles, pickle onions, pickle eggs, pickle chili. I like pickle lily. I know Buttercup knows what I'm talking about. I like bread and butter pickles. I do all them. I think I've got videos of all of them. But I think the secret is that if you like to do something like cooking or growing, you don't even treat it as knowledge, just because it just becomes second nature. And I don't think I've ever made the same stew twice or the same casserole, because I just, whatever's on hand. Hello, Jen. Nice to see you. Talking about food. So if you want to keep your trim figure, I suggest you leave now, because we're going into fatty chops and stews and all sorts of things, Jen. It was more than barter, wasn't it? I mean, even as kids, we'd in the UK, in the season after spring and summer's finished, the pheasants used to get really fat, and they would bounce across the paddocks. They really struggled to take off. And as kids, we knew that. And we'd set up beaters on one side of a paddock, and they'd chase them all the way down to where we were, and we'd just be crunched over, and when they got near us, we'd just grab them. And those pheasants were shared in the district. In other words, the deal was, if you got 10 kids out there, well, all those families got some of the pheasants. Normally it was the bird was cooked by one person, but shared amongst 4 families. That was very common. And if you were very good at growing certain vegetables, or someone had a bigger yard so they grew more potatoes, you looked after them by swapping them for cauliflowers or cabbages. You know what I mean? So that's what Kiwi's talking about. There wasn't a figure. It was a case of supply and demand. If you seem to have a lot of something, you might have to give someone 10 pound of potatoes for 4 cauliflower. But it was a fair swap, because the cauliflower were magnificent and they didn't grow potatoes, so it just worked out well. But a lot of people used to work that prior to growing them. Now they say, look, if you've got some pumpkin or squash at the end of the year, I'll take them and I'll give you a few bags of potatoes. That was very normal. I remember my grandfather's larder in the cellar below, where the coal was in one side, and all his bacon and potatoes, you name it, pumpkins, carrots. There was straw and sand, and he never ran out of food, ever, for the whole year. Old Kirsten to make play clothes. I remember my sister would have been about 6. She would only have been about 13, but she was into sewing. And I remember quite clearly, and don't laugh, because I'm sure this has happened to other people, my mother got a bit of a bargain of new curtains, so she pulled the old ones down. And my sister thought she could make me pyjamas out of curtains, shorts, shirts. I was the experiment. Even at 6, I was embarrassed. Okay? And luckily my mum said, he's not going out looking like that. So that was the end of my older sister's career as a seamstress. Yeah. That's part of my story. Not a pleasant one. Just imagine sending your child to school in something made out of curtains. And they were floral curtains, by the way. Nah, they're all easy to grow. Anything growing below ground is easy. Even in Ireland and parts of Wales during the famine, they still grew turnips, parsnips. You know what I mean? They could still grow a lot of root vegetables, and that changed England after the great famines. There's several famines, but the great famines. They actually, instead of growing crops above ground, they realised the English climate, for volume of food, you could grow more underground. So potatoes, carrots, parsnips, turnips, all those things. Swede. I meant, when I was a kid, I had every known vegetable known to man, and a hint of the flavour of meat, usually due to a bone being thrown in there. And pearl barley. If you've ever had pearl barley in a soup or a stew, you know what I'm talking about. Yummy. But, you know, everything's disposable now, even food. And the food that gets wasted is unbelievable. But imagine if you only had a choice of about 20 foods. That might seem like a lot, but if that's all you had, your variety of meals comes from only 20 types of foods. If you go in your fridge now or your cupboard, you probably count 100 types of food, easy. Yep, I've still got one my dear mum made. She lined it on one side, of course, and crocheted squares on the other. I've still got that. That was made about 40 years ago. Things that you remember, like when I was a kid, Buttercup, shoes were made out of leather. But they were always hard on your feet, so you'd always have someone give you a tin of dubbin. And all the people will know what I'm talking about, but dubbin's like a wax and would soften the leather. Because some of the shoes I wore, mate, they were like wearing bricks. But dubbin, you could soften leather belts, horses' saddles, even some men's hats. Good old dubbin. Apparently helped with cracked heels, elbows, etc. There was no going to a chemist to get something when I was a kid. There was always a home remedy or something, like if you got an infection on a cut. My grandmother or mother would make up a sauce out of sugar and soap. That's it. Sugar and soap mixed up, put over the wound, patched and strapped. And it used to pull out the infection. But don't tell Big Pharma that. They'll get upset. Anyway, I just wanted to have a quick hangout tonight, so I don't want to drag this on. I'm sure you're going to start your day, or if you're Kiwi, you're about to end it like me. So whatever you do today, I hope you have a great time. If you come across some idiots, ignore them. They don't like that. Yeah, Roman sandals. Actually, just thongs when I was a kid in Australia, or bare feet actually. I can't remember wearing shoes from about 10 till I was about 14. I got in trouble for going to school in bare feet. I said, alright, so I put thongs on. I dressed up. All of you have a wonderful day. Take care. And we'll see you again next time.